YouTube, I'm at the beach. Don't believe me? That's my view. So now that I've proved myself at the beach, one of the things I like to do is read. So here's a book off my reading list. So the first book is Fable Haven. In this book, it's about a girl named Kendra and her brother Seth, who spend the summer at her grandpa's house. And unbeknownst to them, her grandpa is in charge of taking care of all magical creatures so they do not go extinct. And all is well. All the creatures obey the wards until Seth accidentally breaks the rules, and then all hell breaks loose. And this is the first book in the series, and I really liked it. Almost as much as I liked Harry Potter. It was very fast and magical and twists every now and again. Some of them were more predictable than others, but I still enjoyed this book. At Water's Edge was an interesting read. A lot of people complained that this story was the same as Water for Elephants, but I did not see that to be the case. This book is about a couple who has a lot of wealth and then gets cut off from that wealth, and in an attempt to regain favor with the family, her husband tries to hunt and capture the Loch Ness Monster. So he takes his wife and a few family friends from America to Scotland to pursue that. And at the same time, Hitler is rising to power. And it delves into mental health issues in the 1930s and 40s, and what happens if women get in the way, and how a man's mental health was seen very differently in that time period, and it just was an overall interesting thing to read. So Aragon was one of those books that I picked up because a boy in my class told me I wouldn't like it because it was all about boys and was a boy book, and I ended up falling in love with this book. When I picked it up, I didn't know that the dragon was actually a female, so that makes it even better. And there's lots of magic and adventure in this book, and the elves kind of make it hard to read sometimes because they do have their own language. So what I would do is I would put on an audiobook while I was reading the book, and it would help me get through those parts. And also, the voice actor who does the CD has a very sexy voice, and so that's a perk. And also, the movie of this book, it was trash only because they killed everybody who was necessary for the rest of the series because they assumed how the series would end. And the first two books were written when the movie came out, but I don't think they paid attention to anything that happened in book 2 because they killed all the important people for book 2 to happen. So that was interesting. And also it was just bad acting all around. But the book is amazing, and so were all 4 books. I've never cried harder for a death of a fictional character. I don't think I have anyways. But still, yeah, Aragon was my book. Herco Happy was one of those books I found randomly in the library. It's about a girl named Joey Willis, and she's deaf and has been deaf since she was 6 years old. She doesn't know sign language because her mom refuses to let her learn, so she's stuck reading lips of people, which is only maybe 45% successful. And so one day she meets Dr. Charles Mansell and his chimpanzee Sukari, and Sukari knows sign language, and through meeting the chimpanzee, this girl's life changes forever. A Million Pieces by James Frey is a memoir about drug and alcohol abuse and his rehabilitation story. And it's a very emotional and intense story, and I didn't think it was going to be when I picked it up. And I only picked it up because a really good friend of mine suggested it, and it turned out to be one of my favorite books. Cloak and Dagger is the first book in a series I'm reading. It's about haberdashery murders, and there's 5 so far. And I love the puns in the title, Cloak and Dagger, and it takes place in London, so there's very dry humor, and there's a romance interest a little bit, but because it's between an American and a British person, it's very different, and the humor is sometimes lost, and so is the romantic cues of I'm interested in you because of the cultural differences, and it's a very fun read, and the whole series kind of goes by quickly. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people are familiar with the Broadway play and even the movie. However, they're less familiar with the book. And one of the reasons why I really love the book of Phantom of the Opera is because there's more backstory to the Phantom himself. In this story, he has a name. There's reasons to the madness of why he has such elaborate schemes in the theater and puzzles, and it just kind of gives you an inkling of who this man was before he became the Phantom. And it almost makes him more mysterious because you know his previous life before he had to make changes to it. So this book was a little dark. I read it at the beach, which might not been the best place to read it, but I ended up falling in love with this book. And The Tattooist of Auschwitz is about a romantic story that actually happened in real life, and it's about a guy from Slovakia, and he's Jewish, and he was taken from his family to go work at Auschwitz, and he eventually becomes a tattooer, which is the German word for tattooist, and he meets this girl named Gita, and he uses his power to try to help her in any way he can, and they eventually have like a romance going in one of the bleakest situations you can. And it's a very inspiring story. Yes, there's like a lot of sad parts to it, but I really enjoyed this book as well. This is one of my all-time favorite books. My copy actually has all 5 books in the same series, so that's why I decided to show a cover of mine, because that's what mine looks like in leatherback. But the first one is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it's such a fun and uplifting book, as well being like a satire on everything political and how everything's run in the United States and in the universe, and you just can't help yourself but laugh about how some of the arguments go down and how it still relates to life today. This book has really gotten me through some tough times, especially because the back of mine says don't panic, and I kind of need that reminder like all the time. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book as well. Well, that's the end of this video. Fan, like, share, subscribe, whatever. See you later.